sit here all day long and I'm creating on this thing, YouTube, podcast, TikTok, Instagram, Reels, so much stuff, and I get asked all the time, how do I actually create all of this? How do I stay consistent with creating so much content? Hello, and welcome back. If you guys are new here, my name is Amanda Kolbye, and I'm a seven-figure entrepreneur and business strategist that helps service-based entrepreneurs scale their online businesses using social media and building the power of the personal brand. So on this channel, you are going to find so much good content about systems, tech, tutorials, business, strategy, marketing, all of the things, and a digital nomad lifestyle, whole slew of content as well, because I also happen to travel the world full-time. So let's dive into today's episode, but before we do, don't forget to like and subscribe to help us creating all of this awesome content for you. And with that, let's chat about some content, including this video. So if you're trying to make money online, whether that's a product-based business, service-based business, or maybe you're a content creator of sorts, no matter what, the lifeblood, y'all know I'm bad with those little phrases there, whatever it is though, is content, right? You have to be creating content and utilizing social media platforms nowadays in order to get found, in order to create a brand that people know, like, and trust, and to make sales. So one thing that is really, really hard as a business owner or content creator is there is so much content out there. There's so many platforms, right? YouTube, podcast, Reels, TikTok, LinkedIn, like all of the things. And when you're starting, I typically don't recommend trying to be on all the things because you are only one person and it takes a lot of energy. But where I'm at in my business, y'all will find me all of these places, everywhere. I'm a lot of places right now, and I show up very consistently. Always, every single week without fail. Now, I get asked all the time, how do I stay consistent? So let's break this down for you, how to create content, but in a way that you're going to be able to maintain and sustain and stay organized and get all of this done every single week without losing your mind. That is the key there, okay? So basically, I want to break this video down into 3 different parts for you. So we're going to chat about how I plan all of the content, how I actually create all of the content, and then how I balance all of this. And at the end, I've got a juicy little tip for you, and I want to highlight my favorite type of content that always brings in sales and leads. So we're going to get to that at the end. Okay, so let's talk about planning. When you're sitting down to create all of this content, you have to have a plan. I never just like sit down and whip up all of this stuff. That wouldn't be sustainable, right? So in order to plan, the first thing that you need to understand is you need to actually start planning and have a plan in place. Because if you're trying to create content not only consistently, but as an omnipresence on multiple platforms, you can't be reinventing the wheel every single week. You can't be constantly thinking of new ideas and reinventing your process of going through all of this every single week, or it's going to take you so much brain power and so much time. And at the point where you're probably having a strong omni-channel presence, you also most likely have a team helping you out. And so you can't be the only one that just randomly pops off with inspiration to create something and expect your team to follow suit. So we have to put some sort of structure in place and a planning process in place, which I'm going to go over in a minute, but this needs to be a non-negotiable. Now, how we start our planning process is basically in 2 arenas. We plan in marketing sprints, which I'll explain in just a minute, and then we also plan very differently based on every platform. But the marketing sprint, which is kind of our overall marketing strategy, it's what's going to help all the content and all the different platforms create this cohesive omnipresence, so that anywhere that you're finding me at a certain time, I'm making sure that I'm leading you to where you want to be led, and also having an overarching strategy that's connecting all this content together. We're dipping into a little bit of marketing strategy here, but overall, this is what helps me also stay consistent, is because I'm not creating all of YouTube at one time and then it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot about my podcast. When I'm planning, I plan the big picture first and then work my way down to every platform. So what is a marketing sprint? What I mean by this? In a very short, simple terms, I plan my marketing based on what I'm selling, because when marketing does its job, sales come easy. So all of my marketing, I want to be leading people along this mental journey to get to the point of sale, because as a business owner, you should always be selling, right? Like that is quite literally what we do. So a marketing sprint can be any duration. If you follow a typical launch format for launching a group program or course, that's technically a marketing sprint. But essentially, I'm going to choose maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, however long I think I need to kind of warm up my audience and fill the gap with all of the different content based on where they're at, to getting them to be a hell yes to wanting to buy my thing. In between that, no matter what platforms are in the picture, I'm going to be planning content very strategically to make them problem aware, to make them aware of my offer, to make them aware of me, me, to know, like, and trust me, to help overcome their objections, all of these different things before we even get to a heightened sales period, okay? At the same time, I'm always selling throughout all of this because as a business owner, I believe you should sell every day, wink, wink. But that is essentially what a marketing sprint is, right? So we're gonna first plan, what are we selling? What is kind of the overarching things that we need to communicate to our audience? So what are those ideas? Then we can take each idea that we wanna communicate and figure out what platform it's gonna fit best on, or we might even take the same idea and put it on multiple platforms, right? So that's really the gist of where we start our planning process. Next, we're gonna go and look at all the different platforms that we have into play. So in my business, we've got quite a few at this point because my business has grown. So we have YouTube, a podcast, TikTok, Instagram, which includes quite a bunch of things underneath it. And we have an email marketing newsletter as well. So with each platform, let's chat very quickly about what determines how we plan and what type of content we're putting on that platform. So for YouTube, like the video you're watching here, we actually don't base this platform off of our marketing sprint, because what we are trying to sell at that current time in real time with our audience, we focus a lot more on content that's not necessarily evergreen. Whereas the way that YouTube functions, without getting fully into depth here, is it's actually a search engine, right? So we base all of our information based on SEO and a lot of research that we're doing there for how we want to be found and what evergreen long-term content we want to exist on this platform. Now, we do think about, okay, what content is going to lead to my certain offers, but it's not always in a timely fashion because of the way that YouTube content exists. It has a very long shelf life. And so we're going to plan that type of content different than, for instance, an Instagram post, which typically has a shelf life of about 48 hours. Now, TikTok, we plan that also not hugely based on our marketing sprint. I would say like 50-50 based on whatever it is that we're selling and trying to communicate as a whole omnipresence. With TikTok, we really make sure our number one priority is following trends. And then our second priority is just other pieces of content that we want to get out there to our audience. But we don't plan the content back to back to back to really compound off each other, as most of the content on TikTok operates in individual pieces, and that's how people consume it. Whereas in Instagram, your content really compounds upon each other, where they might be following the post and the story and all of those things in one day, where you can have them all have little nuggets together that all together create like a compounded effect. Now, our newsletter that we create is very timely, right? So it is incorporated into this big omnipresence marketing sprint of whatever our overarching plan is. Our newsletter, though, is going to be kind of exclusive information. It's typically going to be a little bit of summary, so we might like plug our podcast or YouTube that week, but we also don't just want it to be a compilation of like all of these different links of other content we had. We still want it to have a unique purpose. So we also provide articles and insights and some fun little nuggets inside of our newsletter for our audience to have every week, but we make it really short and really digestible and easy for our audience to want to look into every single week. Again, whatever we're selling, we're going to incorporate in there. And if you'd like to see our newsletter in action, we'll put the link below in the description and you can sign up for our weekly newsletters. I promise they are juicy, they are good. We're not going to spam you, so go check them out. Now, the last two platforms is my podcast and my Instagram. Saving Instagram for last because it's a beast, but my podcast, if you want to check it out, you can see it here. We've got lots and lots of good episodes. We always plan our podcast in accordance with our marketing sprint and based on what we're selling, but the podcast content is going to be longer. And unlike YouTube, where I'm typically teaching something or walking you through or just showing you like the behind the scenes of my life, with podcasts, it's obviously only audio. And I treat my podcast as a lot more elevated, higher level, and thought-provoking type content for me to really get my audience hooked into me as a thought leader and my perspectives, etc. So that's the guiding light of how we choose our podcast content. And all of this content, we're going to batch. So I'm not going to get into too much detail in the differences of batching all of these, but that is something I'll talk about next. Now, before I dive into Instagram, don't forget that out of all of this content, at the end of the video, I'm going to be highlighting my favorite type of content that brings you in the most leads and the most sales. So make sure to stick around until that. So lastly, on our Instagram, how we're going to plan that type of content is all based on our marketing sprint, what we're selling, and really that real timeness, because how people consume Instagram, one, there's a lot of different options from stories to reels to posts to all the things, and they consume it typically on a daily basis. So they're coming back for more and more and more, and they're coming back for those little nuggets and to almost kind of get lost in a web of all of your stuff. So we plan a variation of posts, of reels, and of stories and of lives. So my stories, I try and really be like intimate and raw and behind the scenes. Definitely go follow me for you to see all of this in action. My posts are typically a little bit longer form, and we're really thinking, or shareable, very shareable graphics. And we're really thinking about Again, that mental journey we're trying to take people on, this is probably the content that I compound the most because people are following one thread to the next. Reels, while we definitely try and be trendy, similar to TikTok, we know that it's on the Instagram platform and it is still consumed slightly differently. So we also are always making sure that it's still a longer form caption and maybe a little bit more valuable or educational type of content than all of our TikTok stuff is, which tends to be a little bit more entertaining. So this is a little bit of a gist of some of these pieces of content, but as you can see, not only we need the big picture plan, we need the micro plans as well. Now, before we dive into step number 2, which is actually creating all of this, and I promise you it's not as overwhelming as it seems. If you are a business owner and you're still in those beginning stages, scaling up to that 6-figure mark, and you're trying to figure out not just how to get the first client, but how do you really create the sustainable 6-figure foundations of a service-based business like this, check out my signature group program, Laptop Lifestyle Bootcamp, because this is a program that hundreds and hundreds of women have gone through to generate millions of dollars collectively in order to quit their 9-to-5s and create sustainable online businesses that are fueled by content, just like we're talking about in this episode. Okay, so step number 2 is batching and actually creating all of this content. So I do strongly recommend batching your content, and I'll explain what that means. But for a more in-depth view of what my batching process looks like, make sure and check out this video here. So for my team, we always plan a month at a time from that big picture marketing sprint perspective. So we always know what's kind of on our plate for the entire month. Now, typically from a more micro view, as far as writing all the captions or writing the emails or whatever that may take, we'll go about 2 weeks at a time, just because creating a month of all of that would be a lot at once. And also some of this content is a little bit more reactionary, a little bit more intuitive to your audience and what's going on in the moment, or based on trends that you can't plan a month in advance. So typically once we've got a game plan for the entire month, we'll plan our bigger pieces of content first, like this YouTube video here and our podcast, because those takes a little bit more time and involvement for my team to edit and post, for me to outline, all of those different things. But again, each steps of that process, as you can see here inside of our ClickUp, which is where we record all of this and monitor all of this, we plan every single stage of the process, and it's either assigned to me or my team. We go back and forth between approvals and edits, so we're able to stay very, very on track, and we're able even to see different views as far as what's all getting recorded right now, what's all getting written right now, if it's a caption. And then we also are intentional about how we plan that. So if I have a bunch of reels, I'm not going to record one reel per day. I'm going to take an entire afternoon, schedule all of my reels to be recorded on one afternoon. For example, filming this YouTube video right here, I'll take a little behind the scenes shot of my whole setup I've got going, but I'm filming 3 YouTube videos right now this afternoon so that I don't have to put on all this makeup a ton of times, because if you follow me on Instagram, you know I don't necessarily look like this every single day. In general, batching is really, really important though, for many different reasons that, again, I described in this video here, where you can get more information about it. But it's important because it saves you brain power. It saves you from switching from task to task to task. And you're also going to be able to be more intentional about all the different types of content that you're creating, and help your team as well if you've got a team involved with you. So we've got a bunch of more resources for all of you guys on creating content, getting organized in ClickUp if that's something you're interested in as well, and more specific Instagram videos that I think will be really, really interesting and helpful for you on this topic. So all of that is going to be linked immediately in the description below for you to kind of keep learning and get a whole picture of all of this for your business. Okay, let's talk about balancing all of this now, because you can plan all you want and you can have all the great batching processes and systems you want as well. But when it comes to being consistent, it is going to take a little bit something else in order for you to make this a part of your life, a really routine and easeful part of your life, as much as it possibly can, right? So what this really is going to come down to is essentially content creation habits, if that's what we would call them, and really making this so that you're just building and integrating it into your life. So here's what I mean by this. One example of this is so that you never run out of ideas. I am constantly, and recommend that you constantly do market research. So sometimes this is going to be big market research where you're trying to get people on calls or asking people to fill out a form, and really trying to understand our audience and constantly stay in tune with them. But other easier examples are just simply looking at what content that you're already putting out are people responding to. What are people asking more of? I'm also always writing down ideas from client calls that I'm on, from things that my clients are saying on their content, from DM conversations that I'm having. So having some sort of a place where you can compile both the ideas that you're collecting intentionally and the ideas that just pop into your head at 3 a.m. like anyone else, so that we don't forget them. That's what we want to do, is just make sure that we're intentionally collecting all of these and writing them down, organizing them in some sort of fashion, so that when you go to create content, we can be pulling from that and we're not like, what is the phrase? Oh my God, I'm so bad at this. Pulling from a stone, drawing water from a stone. I think that's the phrase. This is so bad. So anyways, you guys get my point there. What I do for this so that I am never out of ideas is collecting all of that, putting my 3 a.m. thoughts, and I have one place in my ClickUp. Y'all know I love me some ClickUp. Link down below. You can learn all about ClickUp. But I put all my ideas in ClickUp in a just list. I keep it really, really simple. It's called my brain dump list. That way I'm not trying to like get fancy with it. I can literally whip an idea in there. And what I do is every single Friday, I check in on that list. And that way I can categorize them or organize them a little bit more, or I can be intentional about saying, hey, you know what? That idea is a good idea. Let's plug that in for next week. Okay, and the last tip for you here in being consistent is really a little bit of a hard truth, but you need to treat content creation like it's your job, because spoiler alert, it is. Like if you are a business owner, if you are a content creator, if you are doing any of this stuff, content creation and putting all of this out there is quite literally how you make money. It is quite literally how you're gonna reach people. It is your job, okay? But we need to treat it like that. It is not, it can be fun, right? I love creating content, but you have to treat it like that, and that there's not an excuse not to post. You need to prioritize this and build this into your schedule, and be very intentional about your time and blocking it off ahead of time, so that you don't get to be every day and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to post again. It's like, well, did we have a plan? Did we batch create certain stuff? Did we know what our marketing plan was and where we were going and have that written down ahead of time? Because when you do these things, it is not that hard to keep up with all of the content and churning it out, right? Now, a little asterisk to that is I do take breaks, and there are some days where I give myself the grace to say, you know what, I don't need to show up today. A lot of times on weekends, that's my time. Like I don't show up on social media. You don't need to be on it 24/7, but 9 times out of 10, if not 99.9 times out of 100, I guess, I am saying there are no excuses. I'm showing up, I'm posting the things that I need to do, and it is that attitude that will create the consistency of the actions that you need to do in order to see success with your content. Okay, now I promised you my juiciest little tip for you as far as my favorite type of content out of any of these platforms, actually, that leads to leads and sales, and that is polarizing content, okay? So what polarizing content is essentially more opinionated content and sharing content as like a thought leader or having a certain perspective on something. The reason that makes it polarizing is we're not just pleasing people. We're not just regurgitating, educating information. We are taking a stand for something. Now, this doesn't always have to be aggressive, but it should be something that essentially is going to magnetize the leads into either just come to you or purchase from you. But also in magnetizing people, we're going to repel people that are not the right people. So again, polarizing content doesn't always have to be something about politics or values or all of those different things. It can be as simple as YouTube is the best content platform for you to make sales on, and here is why. Not everyone's going to agree with me on that, but if that's something I feel very passionate about and can provide a really strong perspective about, then that's a great piece of content. People are going to get hooked in and say, wow, what is that? Okay, I want more of that, or I agree, or I disagree. It's going to start a conversation. It's going to start engagement. I promise you, polarizing content like this, it is going to lead to sales. All right, thank you so much for tuning into this video. I hope you guys are really excited to go learn a little bit more about batching and planning and just get all these good ideas swirling so that you can bring more leads into your business, really capitalize off of social media, and continue growing your business. So don't forget, we've got a lot of links listed below, and you can also check out some of these other videos here with really other great resources on entrepreneurship, marketing, and even the whole lifestyle that you're going to build from growing this business. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep creating all these videos for you. And I will see you guys on the next video.